DOHA
And let's do the 4 limitless contemplation. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness, which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal, impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Sinjentam je dewatang dewe jutang din pa jutik, dungal chichu tang drawa jutik, dungal mepe dewa tampa tang mindrawa jutik, nering chaktang ni tang drawe tang nom chimpola ne pa jutik. So we're going to go on with this beautiful aspirational prayer of Jigme Lingpa that this wonderful Anam Thupten has given. So we're doing developing awareness, which is the theme of Jigme Lingpa's aspirational prayer. And this is part 3. I'm calling it part 3. I just want to say to all of you, it is the most beautiful material when you really go into it. But I don't want you ever to feel you're getting bored with it, because I couldn't stop making notes from it when I was studying it. And so I've got a thick wad of notes. So as soon as you are bored with it or you're not gaining anything but it, you've got to say to me, can we go on to something else? Can we do something else? Because it's really, really important not to rush the stuff. And once you know it, once you know what that Rigpa is, then once you know it, then you've got everything you need for your whole journey. So I want to start off with 2 things. One, a poem that someone, an anonymous person, wrote, which is really an important contemplation for all of us. It's called, He Always Wanted to Explain Things. Okay. He always wanted to explain things, but no one cared. So he drew. Sometimes he would draw, and it wasn't anything. He wanted to carve it in stone or write it in the sky. He would lie out on the grass and look up in the sky, and it would be only him in the sky and the things inside him that needed saying. And it was after that that he drew the picture. It was a beautiful picture. He kept it under his pillow and would let no one see it. And he would look at it every night and think about it. And when it was dark and his eyes were closed, he could still see it. And it was all of him, and he loved it. When he started school, he brought it with him, not to show anyone, but just like to have him with it like a friend. It was funny about school. He sat in a square brown desk, like all the other square brown desks. I can just see myself in high school exactly like that, okay? Like all the other square brown desks. And he thought it should be red. And his room was a square brown room like all the other rooms. And it was tight and close and stiff. He hated to hold the pencil and chalk with his arms stiff and his feet flat on the floor, stiff. With the teacher watching and watching, the teacher came and spoke to him. She told him to wear a tie like all the other boys. He said he didn't like ties. She said it didn't matter. And after that, they drew. And he drew all yellow, and it was the way he felt about morning, and it was beautiful. The teacher came and smiled at him. What's this? She said. Why don't you draw something like Ken's drawing? Isn't that beautiful? And after that, his mother bought him a tie. And he always drew airplanes and rocket ships like everyone else. And he threw the old picture away. And when he lay alone looking at the sky, it was big and blue and all of everything, but he wasn't anymore. He was square inside and brown, and his hands were stiff, and he was like everyone else. And the things inside him that needed saying didn't need it anymore. It had stopped pushing. It was crushed, stiff, like everything else. Now, I think it's such a beautiful poem. Don't you? Because I really think, you just watch these little kids and they come in, just watch them when people are going through a bereavement. They'll come to you and they'll say, Mommy, don't worry. This person's just gone here, gone there, gone everywhere. Don't cry. You mustn't cry because they had to go there. They'll give you the explanations. They'll give you their imaginary friends. And what do? We shut them up. Don't tell anyone about this. Don't tell anybody how you feel. Nick, I'm sure you must have been a child like that who saw nature and, just related to the whole of nature and was always told to keep quiet, just keep it to yourself kind of thing. What are we doing? How did we go so wrong? How did we go from being these beautiful, creative, open people to being these little boxes, made of ticky-tacky and having to do everything that everybody wants us to? Now, the bottom line is it's really important to have a way of examining ourselves and our children and our grandchildren and our worlds. Otherwise, I once read a story where this person was driving a boat and driving it madly and turning the steering wheel and hooting and everything. And at the end of the life, they were in the same spot that they were leaving. So actually they were driving and had never gone out of that spot. Now, the bottom line is that we've got to move from this spot. It's really, really important. And this teaching gives us a real understanding. And Karen, thanks to Karen, she sent me this most beautiful book on the copper-colored mountain. And I was trying to study it when I was really sick because there isn't very much time. And I really found, that it's absolutely fascinating to see what this whole world is about. Because if we really look at this world, so let me see if I can find it. If we really look and see this world, it's a very special world. And Jigme Lingpa, when he was looking at the copper-colored mountain that's Guru Rinpoche's pure land, okay, he compares the constitution of the copper-colored mountain with the Saha Loka. Saha Loka means our own world, where we endure incessant suffering, dukkha, okay, in a universe that's fractured by dualistic fixation, which is just what I've been telling you. And he says, in Vimalakirta Nirdesa Sutra, when Shariputra asks Buddha Shakyamuni why this world is so filled with impurities, the Buddha responds, the thus come one, that's the Buddha himself, is not to blame. Shariputra, this land of mine is pure, but you fail to see it. You fail to see it. Okay, such an important thing, because if the Buddha was here, and now I'm going to tell you why we live in such a pure land. If the Buddha was here and the land is pure, why are we looking at the boxes and the wars and the greed and the corruption? Why are we looking at that? And what he says is, it would appear then that there are certain advantages, and don't take this for granted that it's going to happen to you for the rest of time. There are certain advantages to being born in our world of saha. Saha means that which must be endured. According to the Vimalakirti Sutra, our realm is a pure land of Buddha Shakyamuni. Think about this, which has unique qualities which are missing from other Buddha fields. Isn't that interesting? So our particular land, which comes under Buddha Shakyamuni, has unique qualities missing from other Buddha fields. Why? Because if you read cosmology is a very complex subject for us to actually understand. but I'm going to give it to you very, very, very simply because it's something you really need to contemplate, okay? Saha, which is our world of endurance, is the 13th pure land in an assembly of 25 world systems known as Vairashana's glacial ocean. So we have this beautiful Buddha, one of the 5 Dhyana Buddhas called Vairashana. And at his heart level, he has 25 lotuses. On each lotus is a Buddha land and a pure land. You've got no idea. Thousands and thousands and millions of universes we can't even conceive. I mean, our world is a teeny little thing on the top of an anther. Okay, it's so enormous. Now, the cosmic vision or the cosmology from Buddha Vairashana's begging bowl. So he has a bowl here with lotuses in. 25 Buddha fields are stacked one upon the other at the anther of one lotus flower, okay? And the 5 Buddha fields correspond to the body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities of enlightenment. Saha is on the 13th level. That's directly in Buddha Vairashana's heart. So our world, Saha, is right off Buddha Vairashana's heart, and it corresponds to the mind of this Buddha. And it is where the essence of Buddhist teachings, the doctrines of the Vajrayana, can flourish. Now, I found it hard to write anything down because I wasn't feeling well, but I wrote this down. If you can just ponder this for 2 minutes, we live in a world that is very special. That Buddha Shakyamuni said, it's my pure land. Yet what do we see? All this ugliness. We can't see what it really is. We can only see with our own perception. Now, when we understand this, plus the story he wanted always to explain things, we begin, well, what are we doing here? Why are we here? Why can't we see the pure land? And it's couldn't do anything this week. I was really incapacitated. And I think it was part of all. I had
Mel,
this.
you're freezing. Mel, your sound is
Okay.
no good.
Okay, just give me a moment. I'm just going to, a moment, it should come back, I think.
Seems to be okay now.
Okay, yeah, it'll come back. It might go off because we're in the process of exchanging the load shedding. That's what might have happened. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is I was lying there and I was listening also to Dzongkar Khyentse Rinpoche, and he says, you know, if you have in your hands a pot of gold and a pot of shit, he called it, okay, they're both the same. It's equal taste. And I thought to myself, here I am, and I could hardly breathe. I could hardly stop coughing. I didn't have any energy. I didn't have oxygen. But at the same time, I was realizing things, so many things. And I thought, you know, when you're incapacitated, you've got that ability to really, really, really see things very, very clearly. What are we doing here and how it is? So I just really wanted you to know that it's very, very important that what we're doing now is what Dzongkar Khyentse Rinpoche says all the great Kagyu masters, when they were writing their songs, called our nature of mind ordinary mind, because that's what we're supposed to be using. But we're not. We're using dualistic sem all the time. And so he said, it's called the ground luminous emptiness. And that's exactly what Anam Thupten is talking about in this beautiful poetry, that if we look at it carefully and we really understand the essence, which is the ground, which is emptiness, the nature, which is clarity, awareness, and the expression, which is unlimited compassion. If you understand that, then you understand the three kayas about which we are made, and about everything in the world is made up of that. And it's really, really important that we understand that. Does anyone want to say anything? Because I've given you a couple of profound things here. Maybe you want to ask or anything. Because Gail was saying, Gail texted me and she said to me, but Melanie, if it's so pure and it's so pure in the real nature of mind, why did we ever leave the purity? And it's such a good question. Why did we leave? Why did we take our egos and go off on a journey? Because if we just stayed in the purity, we would only understand the ground, the emptiness. We wouldn't understand that the emptiness, Z, is expressing Z Nang all the time. And we have to learn to recognize that as the same as the ground. And if we stayed in the emptiness, we'd just be nothing. Like Adnam Tutan says, we'd be happy vegetables, very happy vegetables. Well, for about 1 minute this week, I don't think I would have minded being a happy vegetable. Okay? But the point of the matter is that to be happy vegetables is of no value. We've got to discover, we've got to expand, we've got to interact with all the Z Nang, the expression of the ground. We've got to see it in its true essence. If we just stayed in the emptiness, we would be nothing but happy vegetables. So we have to go out and we have to be able to recognize this. So before I go on and we go into it, I just want you to, I want to know what you think about what I've just read you. The poem and the thing from Jigme Lingpa's Copper-Colored Mountain. Anyone want to say anything? You don't have to, but if you've got something, must hit some note on you. Yeah, Mimi.
I was just thinking when you said our land is a very special one, and our connection to Varashana. Can you enlarge a bit on that?
Yeah, Varashana is the Buddha of the Dharma Dhatu. So the emptiness of everything is Varashana, okay? And Varashana, it comes from the Buddha family. And if you look at the Buddha family, it's always blue, open, spacious, okay? And the poison is ignorance or delusion. When we don't see what we need to see, it's ignorance and delusion. Okay, so Varashana from the Buddha family is right in the center, and right in the center of his heart is our pure land. And it hits me, you know, so many things hit me this week. It hit me that Buddha Shakyamuni said to Shariputra, it's not, don't blame me for the impurities of your world. It's really is, if I'm here and I'm a Buddha, then this has got to be a Buddha land, a pure land. If you see it as differently, it's because you haven't developed. It's such a profound thing. Nick, I could see that you're on the edge of your chair. Tell me what you're thinking. I like to hear your lovely mind.
No, I love that, Mel. I think firstly, the poem really resonates, and I think it's what we are so conditioned to be, and also made me question how do I participate in reinforcing that, you know, even expectations of other people and just putting things into square boxes the whole time. So it was, I loved the poem. It was lovely. But just on that thing about, you know, us being in a pure land, I think, you know, for me, it's so important to know that, because it's not about wanting to leave this life and this place that we are at, hoping that we can be reborn in a pure land and have all these aspirations to be in a pure land. We are in a pure land. So how can we therefore work with that material, work with the matter, work with everything we've got in our life today and see it as a pure land. Because if we can't see this as a pure land, how are we going to see any other pure land as a pure land?
And you know, and exactly what you're saying, and that is so profound. And what I realized is, you know, that when I was looking at human relationships, that it's such a fascinating thing, because I realized that when you look at an enlightened being like Guru Rinpoche, and I wrote this down for tomorrow night, if you look at a profound being like Guru Rinpoche, he integrates all the parts of himself together to function in this world, both enlightened and for unenlightened people. We can't. We split everything off. Do you know what I mean? Because we can't integrate it, because we haven't got the base of our Buddha nature. We don't believe in that. We think we are some little person with all our limitations, with everything, with all our limitations. We pathetic, we this, that, and the other. We've missed the point if we think that. We've completely missed the point, because, you know, we might be in a pathetic life at the moment, but that's our own fault. And it's not going to change when we go just because we learned a little bit of Buddhism. It's really not going to change. It can only change the day we click into awareness versus unawareness. If we live in the delusion of sleepfulness, there is just no way we can pick this up. And I cannot begin to tell you how heartbreaking it is that so many people are living like that. And to take Dzongkar Khyentse Rinpoche, and then we must get onto the teaching because there's so much. But he said such an interesting thing in all the DOHAs, the songs of the masters, the Kaju masters, that he said, Buddha Shakyamuni, at the end of his life, when the Maras were all coming for him, he actually said something so interesting, something like, I've done my deed. I've cast off my baggage. When you can say that to me, and I can say that to you, then cheers. Okay, we don't need this anymore. I've done my deed. I've cast off my baggage. We have got such baggage that it is quite pathetic. Do you know what I'm saying? So much baggage. And he's done it. He did what he came to do. He was completed. Now he could go into an enlightened state and he wasn't going to teach anymore. It's amazing when you really look at it. It's absolutely amazing. So let's go on today. We were talking last time, and it's really important that when we were doing the poem, you know, when we were
Sorry,
doing...
Mel,
Yes.
I just wanted to say one
Please.
thing.
Please.
Would it, the way I feel is, sorry, I'm losing my voice too.
Boy,
It's only now in this existence that we can do anything and make any changes. Once we get past this life and we are part of the greater whole, we can't make any kind of changes. Would that be correct in assumption?
You see, it's correct and it's incorrect, because it depends where you go. Now, Karen gave me this copper-colored mountain, and it is mind-boggling. It's also, you know, Jigme Lingpa's another aspirational prayer that he gave for us to go to the copper-colored mountain. Now, that's so interesting, Gail, because even to Devachen, you see, I want to go in my mind to the copper-colored mountain, not to Devachen, because in the copper-colored mountain, for me, you have the maximum opportunity to serve. Okay, more opportunity to serve than anything else, because once you work for the mandala of Guru Rinpoche, your whole life is service, nothing else. Okay, and that's all I want. You know, when I think of how much time I waste going to dinners and schminners and doing things at home and all of those kind of things, I don't want that. I want to just be able to teach people and work and help people and get them right. You know, that's all I really want to do. But if you go to the copper-colored mountain, it says there, you can get caught into the land of the Rakshasas. They are the meat, flesh-eating beings, okay, who swallow you up. And if you get caught there, you could be caught there for a long time if you haven't advanced your mind enough to go beyond that. So if you can get to a pure land inside yourself, you have the opportunity, open portal to unity, to really increase yourself, improve yourself, learn what you want to learn. I mean, in the copper-colored mountain where Guru Rinpoche is, you have got every single kind of teaching, every master, everything, apart from the work that you do. But surrounded are these Rakshasas and these demon-faced beings and everything, which you can't get tracked. And those demon-faced are your own demons, your own stuff that you take with you. So it's not just, oh boy, I'm going to the Pure Land. You've got to clean out, cast off your baggage, and then you are free, and then you can really get going into a Pure Land. If you go from here and you don't get to a Pure Land, if you just go to the border of becoming and you get catapulted into another lifetime, then no, you have no opportunity to improve yourself in any way. But if you understand this, that is being given to us in this very privileged way, if you understand this, there is no way you cannot go and improve yourself once you go. Do you know what I'm trying to say? But if you miss that, and you're in a mental body without having cast off any baggage. So in other words, if somebody, let's say somebody was very depressed, and they were depressed because of their life, because of this, because of that, because of the other, and then they moved into the next dimension with total depression and total everything, they would really not be able to do a thing. They would just be catapulted back again into that same state. But once you cast off your baggage, once all of you can actually say, you know what, all this crap that I carry with me, it is not true. It is not who I am. It is not what I am. It is just the delusions that I have put into my mind. I must cast off this baggage and become this enlightened being. You know, it's such a beautiful thing when you're lying in bed and you really don't feel well and you really don't feel energetic, which is so unlike me. But there I am. And what was so clear to me was that if I've got this, then I've got everything I need. Do you know what I'm saying, Gail? It's so important that all of you understand this. And like, I don't care that, you know, that I want the people that really want to learn that. You've got to learn Z, the ground, the emptiness, the pure ground, and Z, Nang, the manifestation of the ground. And let's go to where we were last week and just refresh on the vase, just refresh on the youthful vase body, because that's what we want to attain, the youthful vase body. Oi, Bern, what's happened with you now? Is it an arm here? Okay, here we are. You're having a hard time, Bern, today with your thing. Okay, it doesn't matter. So the youthful vase body is one of the ways to explain Zi Nang, the manifestation of the ground, the luminous manifestation of the ground. To explain the whole existence manifests from Z, and you've got this youthful vase body. That's what you want to attain at the end of a lifetime. It's called Zun Nu Bum Ku. That's what it's called in Tibetan. The body just refers, it's not really a body, so to speak. The body refers, as what I told you last time, to the formless dimension of the ground Rigpa where it resides. And as the inner luminosity, okay, it's dormant. So you've got this beautiful ground, and your inner luminosity is contained inside the vase body. So all your beautiful expression is inside your vase body, okay? And the vase, youthful means it's deathless. You haven't got death anymore. You can come where you want, you can go where you want. It doesn't really matter, beyond condition. Vase, what's inside you, it's not a real body, it's just pure whatever, is a metaphor that keeps the luminosity inside. In other words, if this was your body, the luminosity is contained inside this. The Zinang is contained. Sorry, oi. Okay, Bobby, don't worry about it. I hope you're okay. The luminosity is contained inside the youth body, like a flame burning inside this clay vase. And the flame is the inner luminosity, but no one can see its light shining out of the vase. So what he gives the analogy is, he says, the vase cracks, it breaks open, and suddenly the light can shine out. So that, Gail, is like what we were talking about. If you're inside the vase and you've got what's the purpose? So the vase breaks and the luminosity shines out, 5 colored lights, which are the radiance of the inner luminosity, subtle primordial wisdom. These come, and then the whole manifestation of everything in the world manifests itself in this beautiful, beautiful, pure way. Okay, but it's got to get, and it shows how the whole existence is there and how everything is just a display from the ground. It comes out. But if it's inside you and you don't know that it's inside you, then you can't have that pure manifestation of any description or any kind. Now, he gives another way, which I was telling you last week, and I don't mind going through it again, because I think it's really important. Another explanation, like for this youthful vase body, and we can go through it again. He says, the primordial ground, our pure awareness, or our original consciousness, is awakened by the life force. So something comes in, a life force comes in, okay? And then at that moment, it wakes up. It wakes up as this extraordinary phenomena. That's all we can say. He says, original consciousness wakes up when the life force, how does the life force come in? I have no idea. It's the same as like when the sun rises, okay? Suddenly there's sun. Suddenly the life force comes in, and now everything wakes up. It's like when you wake up in the morning, and then it begins to experience its own display, the display of the ground called Zinang. This beautiful, beautiful ground, all the colors, all the rainbows, all the wisdoms, but also all the rubbish. It displays everything, the rubbish if we can't see it. And he says, when that life force comes in, it's the moment when awareness and unawareness takes place at the same time. That is your choice, awareness or unawareness, nirvana or samsara, right coming to being. And at that moment, the consciousness has 2 potentials, okay, 2 potentials. One, to be enlightened, and another, to be deluded. Sometimes to freedom, sometimes to imprisonment. It's up to you. Okay. And he says, we can see this in everyday life. And when the consciousness makes the choice to use its potential for freedom, then what does it realize? It says, oh, all these colors, all these lights, all these trees, all these people, they're all a manifestation, my own self-display coming from the ground. They're all my own. There's nothing outside of me. It's all in me. It's all my own display. Does anybody not understand this? Please ask me if you don't. This is so important. I can see that you're concentrating loose like nobody's business. But you know how simple it is. You've got that consciousness. It's so simple. You've got that consciousness. The life force comes in. You wake up. If it starts manifesting itself and you say, oh, that's a nice tree outside myself. That person doesn't belong to me. That one does. That's a nice house. That's a nice this. That's a nice that. If you don't see that it is your own display, then you go into delusion, samsara, and the impure land. As soon as you realize it's your own display, then everything changes. You say, well, yes, Nick, please ask your questions or give your comments.
I think just exactly what you say, just in other words, is it's not even what's inside of you displayed outside of you, because there is no you. It's just, so the tree is not something you are displaying from within yourself. There is no self that's displaying a tree. It's just
the ground. It's the ground.
That's the right word. Yeah.
You see, now, if you get that, that is where you make your choice. So in other words, let's take this and use it. Let's use it really, really very practically. Okay, let's say you're dying. Now you're dying and you're looking around you and all your families around your bed, kind of, they don't want you to die. They're asking you to live and everything. And you thinking, oh my goodness, I can't leave them. Look, they all need me. They all need me. My family need me. I can't leave. Okay. Then you're making the choice to see all of that as separate from you. But if in that moment in time you realize that your whole life was just a manifestation from the ground of your consciousness, you have no problem leaving, because it doesn't make any difference, because they're in you, you're in them, doesn't make any difference. They're not your belongings external to you. Can you understand that? Good, Betty. I'm pleased if you can. Can anybody else other than Betty understand that? Bern, are you okay? Jeez, I don't know what's happening.
I'm fine, Mel. I just, I've hurt my back, but badly. And I can't sit. So that's why I've taken my camera off, because you don't want to see me lying down and then standing around and walking around with the computer. I've got it. It's fine. No, it's fine.
Okay, but the state, everybody, of non-recognition is known as avidya. Avidya, and I want to look at that. And he says it would be nice if unawareness didn't happen at the moment Zinang arises. But unawareness happens as part of the whole grand picture. Without it, there wouldn't be samsara, and there wouldn't even be a path. And how could there be a path if there was no suffering to transcend? There wouldn't be sentient beings who were deluded, and you wouldn't be here listening to this talk. The reason we're interested in the path is because there's a desire in each of us to be awakened. To be awakened means to choose not to be deluded. He says here, one of my friends said that suffering is a rich ingredient of life because it makes us more human and compassionate, more ripened and baked. Otherwise, we would be happy vegetables. He said, I would add that if everyone was enlightened from the beginning, the whole universe would be like a heaven of happy vegetables, and it would not be very interesting in the long run, which is it's so interesting because, you know, we'd all think, well, it would be quite nice to have happy vegetables, but it wouldn't. What would we be doing? We'd just be pursuing the pleasure principle. It's nice that we struggle and that we look at things, you know, as they really are. And unawareness is the very foundation of our pain and misery. And as long as unawareness continues, our suffering and misery will continue. And he says, one common way to describe how samsara comes into being is through the 12 links of interdependent origination. What is the first link on the wheel of life? Unawareness. Okay, it's unawareness or avidya. Everything on that whole tree of life, on that whole 12 links, comes from not being aware. It's really, really important. But let's look at unawareness and then let's do a meditation. Let's just quickly look at the 3 types of unawareness. Do you want to know about unawareness so you don't fall into the traps? Okay, because he gives the 3 types of unawareness. He says avidya is a very useful concept without being heavy-handed. In the West, original sin is a heavy concept if misunderstood. You know when you get this original sin, okay, when you get this, you must have seen it a little bit where you were visiting now, Betty. Okay, original sin is a heavy concept if misunderstood. In the East, original sin does not exist. Why? Because there is original unawareness, not sin. What's the difference? What's the difference between sin and unawareness? Come on, Gailsy, what's the difference between sin and unawareness? Anybody? Nick, what's the difference between sin and unawareness? What's the one?
I think it's how what you define sin as, because unawareness could be a sin, if you know where I'm coming from. But
could it be a sin in the beginning? No, it couldn't be a sin. Only later, when you really deluded and you see it as something outside of yourself, then you can commit negative deeds and negative acts. But that's the first kind of unawareness that is spoken about in this verse. He says there's one called original unawareness is not a sin. It's like when we're sleeping in the consciousness. Do you know what I mean? Before we've even awakened, it's purely innocent. It's just not awakened. It's not impure or bad. It's just like sleeping. No scripture or logic proves that sleep is a sin. It's innocent. It's forgetfulness of who we are in our true nature. Whereas sin is when you go out and you kill somebody or you do them in or you do something terrible. Original unawareness, the first type of unawareness, is just, it's called causal unawareness, and it means you just don't know. You're asleep. So remember, in the ground is the potential to be deluded or awakened. So in the beginning, you don't know the kind of awareness. It's called, it's present, it's not separate, it's just a single identity. And if you switch on the lamp, it'll change that. But that original unawareness is already inside the ground. There's also awareness and there's unawareness. It's inside the ground. Whereas the next type of unawareness, and you can ask me about this, is when the consciousness emerged from the ground and didn't recognize itself. That's when that next awareness, it's called co-emergent unawareness. It doesn't recognize everything around it as its own display. It's co-emergent because it happened when the consciousness emerges, it starts seeing all these things around it, and it doesn't recognize it's its own display. When you recognize it's its own display, it's not a problem anymore. Do you understand, Amanda? I think you could understand this quite easily, because we make a whole dualistic awareness. So the first type of unawareness is when you're just sleeping. Like sometimes someone says to me, or like I give you the example of someone in a queue. They're in a queue and they're talking to, they're making appointments for themselves, and you standing in the queue. And like, I don't want to hear their whole conversation of them making appointments with the doctor and the dentist and having a conversation with them. They're unaware. They don't actually know that they're affecting you in any way. In the second unawareness, you know that you are seeing things and you're seeing them as separate. So now it's an unawareness, a co-emergent unawareness, because it's subtle. And what happens to us with that kind of unawareness, you know how many people say to me, you know what, Melanie, I went into this relationship with this guy and I thought he was absolutely divine. You know what? I didn't realize what he was up to all the time. I didn't realize the things he was doing on the sneak all the time. So I got myself into this terrible situation because I didn't know what he was doing. I believed everything he said. That's that kind of unawareness. It's there for you to see, but you won't see it because you're clinging to your idea of what you want and how you want things to be. Can you understand that? That's the second type of unawareness. And then the third type of awareness is called the unawareness of labeling. Now we see all of these things around us and we give them a label. We begin to label them. This is Gail, this is Bernice, this is a tree, this is a jersey, this is a dog. We label them. Now we reify them, we make them absolutely solidify, and we designate me, ego, attachment to the mistaken perception. You know, you're there and I'm here. It's a trap of hope and fear, aversion and attraction. And you believe these thoughts and stories in your mind. You make up stories and you say, oh, well, this will pass. You know, this will pass. You think it's going to pass, but in the meantime, you're just deluding yourself. All those unawarenesses. Jade, you're writing, I want to know what you think, because I know your mind works very well with all these things. What do you think? Because these three unawarenesses are the root of samsara, everybody. They really are. And our minds make up stories and we believe them. I hear people saying to me all the time, I'm so useless. I'm so pathetic. I can't do things. I don't know what to do with my life. I'm depressed. I can't do things. That's because we're deluding ourselves. Jade, what do you think? I want to hear, because I know you've got a lot of understanding of this.
I don't know whether you can hear me now, Mel.
I can hear you perfectly, my darling. What do you feel about unawareness?
Well, unawareness is certainly not conducive to trying to change and to see the reality which presents itself in all those incorrect manners of how we conduct our lives and involve ourselves with the suffering, which is what makes us just go round and round and round, and we stay in that realm of just not being here for the purpose that we're here for.
Exactly. And when you begin to wake up, when you see the truth, you know, sometimes it's with one's own child or with one's own family. You suddenly see the truth. It doesn't mean that you condemn them and go into a whole thing, but it's so important to understand, because he says, Jigme Lingpa says, in Buddhism, there's a logic that says, unless you understand delusion, you will not understand wisdom. We want to be wise, but if we don't know what we're doing, we can't. If we don't know what unawareness is, we will not easily understand awareness. Unawareness links to the negative emotions. The more we become aware of the process of falling into the trap of unawareness, the more we can carry awareness and insight into everyday life. The Dzogchen masters keep repeating, look at your own mind. You know, it's such an interesting thing. Somebody sent me something this week, which I thought was so very, very interesting. Let me just see if I can find it very quickly, because it was such an interesting thing. This is what it says. Self-illumination. When the attentiveness of our own consciousness turns inward within its own conscious nature, it self-illuminates and self-knowing wisdom spontaneously arise. How? The Dzogchen master Jigme Rinpoche says, the way to do this, and we're going to do this now in meditation, is just to turn your attention slightly inward, not to look deeply inside. Just turn your focus from outward to inward in a very light way. He says the introduction to Rigpa is very simple. We just look back at ourselves. There is an oral instruction about the way to look, said Minja Rinpoche. It is as though your eyes were looking through the back of your head instead of looking forwards. It's as though your eyes are looking backwards instead of forwards as they usually do. You're looking out with your eyes, but are looking back at the same time. But he says, don't try too hard with this, though, otherwise you'll make a big mistake. You'll just sort of look back. But directing the attention back to Rigpa awareness, the arisings dissolve back into their origin and its essential nature, Rigpa awareness. So interesting, because he says, occasionally a daring soul desiring immortality has looked back and found himself. Have you ever seen yourself? Now, isn't it interesting that when you are going through a really hard time, that's when you see yourself. Otherwise, you see the delusions. And this teaching is to really wake up, because he says it's the highest instruction, so simple. The moment we look at our own mind, there is already awareness. Awareness is the lamp or light of the consciousness that illuminates everything. Awareness and unawareness are both display of the same consciousness. It's just consciousness going through its own state. I know this is deep. I know it's quite hard for a lot of you, but the point of the matter is that we were talking last time about nihilism, just looking at the consciousness, nihilism, and looking at the eternal life, eternalism. It's none of those. That's why I was telling you last week, he says, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. And he doesn't go, and it is this, because it isn't this. It's just the state of the ground of being without words and description. I'm going to just read you, I'll do it after the meditation. I want to read you this beautiful story of Milarepa, and that'll relax you. Listen, there's so much here in every single verse. It's sort of mind-boggling, but I want it to be practical to you all. I really want it to be practical. Without it being practical, there's no point in me doing it if you're just learning a theory. So let's do just a little bit of meditation. All of this is quite difficult to understand in the beginning, but actually a lot of you could really understand this awareness versus unawareness. It's really very, very important that out of exactly the same ground comes not only, out of the ground comes not only the manifestation of the lights, of the kayas, of the wisdoms, of the non-duality, but also the impure world of samsara. So breathe in and breathe out. And actually be Z, the ground. You're absolutely open, spaciousness, pure. There's just no thing. You're breathing in and you're breathing out. And you are absolutely present. And from this beautiful, beautiful ground comes Zinang, the manifestation. The life force comes into you, and suddenly the manifestations of 5 colored lights of wisdom arise, and out of them everything. Everything from the Dharmakaya, the ground, to the Sambhogakaya, the nature, to the Nirmanakaya, the ceaseless manifestation. And if you don't touch it, you just look inwards. All of this, even the pure lands we were talking about, are all internal, not external. I used to always say to Lamayeshi, I'm taking a red boat to Devachan and I'm taking everyone in with me. And he said, where are you going? It's just inside you. So when you see this beautiful manifestation of Zinang, I want you to just turn your eyes slightly inward, not outward, inward, and see that the whole display in the ground is all within your own vase, within your own being, within your own heart chamber. Devachan and the copper-colored mountain are all just facets of your own consciousness, the ground, huge and pure. So take time, especially when you're going through a hard time, to just be, to realize, not in delusion, that who you are acting in this little drama of this life is a teeny grain of sand, sand pit. And that if you turn inwards and you realize in a beautiful heart chamber, everything is. Just imagine at your death, when your whole body, speech, ordinary body, ordinary speech, ordinary mind, ordinary consciousness dissolves. Everything, each aspect of your body, each aspect of your consciousness is really one of the wisdoms. So they all become manifest at death. The only trap is if we can't see them. It definitely happens. And if we can't see this, then we're trapped. If we can see this, then we wake up to everything that we truly are. And we've got unlimited experience. I'm going to just give you this beautiful story. But before I do, I just want to say that he gives 8 doorways of spontaneous manifestation or spontaneous presence. In other words, when the ground manifests, there are 8 doorways. The first one is unobstructed compassion. The second one is the manifestation of lights. The third one is the manifestation of wisdom. Sorry, the third one is the manifestation of the 3 kayas. The fourth one is the manifestation of wisdom. The fifth one is the manifestation of non-duality. The sixth one is the freedom from extremes. Now, the 7th one is so interesting because it says the impure gate of samsara. So if you can't realize that this is the expression of the ground, there is samsara for you. Very clear. And the 8th one is the pure gate of wisdom. He says, this just shows us there are millions of different ways that the ground can manifest itself. And it can become the door to enlightenment. If you just sit in your garden, you don't have to do hectic manifestation. Sit in your garden, sit at a bus stop, sit wherever you like and just watch all the manifestations and know that these are all part of you and they either lead to delusion or they lead you to awakening. Okay, and that when they are finished manifesting, they go back into the ground. It's such an interesting thing. Everything that we perceive in the phenomenal world is just a display of awareness which dissolves back into itself. The insight or wisdom that recognizes this becomes the highest fruition of enlightenment. So if you know, for instance, that you're going through grief, sorrow, bereavement, lack of money, lots of money, terrible things in the country, you go, okay, this is just a manifestation, a display of the awareness, something I'm watching because I'm needing to clear that baggage that I started off by telling. That's why it's coming into being. It's going to all dissolve again, sooner or later. If you can understand this, then you threw. I'm just going to read you the story, then I'll leave the rest for your question. Once, Milarepa was challenged by a black magician of the pre-Buddhist faith of Tibet. He challenged Milarepa that through his magic power, he would be able to reach the summit of Mount Meru. Miller replied that he could do the same. Let us see, said the magician, who will reach it first. And he started to climb up. It was very early in the morning and the sun had not yet risen. And Miller said, I'm going to rest a little while. Okay. Those who had been present when the magician challenged him grew worried and implored him to hurry after his adversary. He was unruffled and didn't move from his rest. The magician was almost at the top of Mount Meru or Mount Kailash and was jeering at Miller when the first ray of the sun touched the summit of the holy mountain. Miller had been waiting for this moment. Through the mighty power of his concentration, his rigpa, he immediately became one with the ray. And before the magician realized what had happened, the figure of Milarepa appeared at the top of the mountain. Okay. Hello, he called out to the magician who was panting and puffing below him. Don't exert yourself. And the magician, who saw himself defeated, got such a shock that he dropped his magic drum, Damaru. It leapt down in big bounds, and each time it bounced against the ice dome of Kailash, it emitted a loud tone and left a deep cut on the surface of the dome. Tung, 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 it went, to the great hilarity of all the onlookers. And up to this present day, a perpendicular line of stair-like impressions are to be seen, forming a vertical axis on the southern face of the dome of Kailash. The moral of the story is the difference between surrendering to your Buddha nature or making a great effort with Sem to reach the summit. The steps created by the magician's drum are significantly, firstly, they come from an ego base, like I'm going to win, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to come from an ego base to win and defeat. The steps show that the only progress with Sem, your ordinary mind, is the step-by-step gradual process where the other is instantaneous, spontaneous, effortless, just being at the view at the top. Isn't that an amazing story? One of the true stories that's told of Milarepa. I find it just amazing. And I know what he's talking about when he says it's so effortless. Because this week when I was lying in my bed, I thought to myself, I just know what this is about. Or I just know this or that or the other. I couldn't do anything, but I just knew. That's all you have to do. Talk to me. We've still got a few minutes. I don't want to give you more teaching, too much. I've got pages and pages and pages. Such a wonderful thing. Anyone, let me hear what you've got to say. You don't want more teaching.
I'll say we are the masters of our own universe.
Yeah. But
we just got to realize that.
Exactly. But Gail, how do you realize it? How do we get ourselves to realize it? That's so important.
Well, you know what? As what you've been talking about, everything comes from the same place and it goes back into it.
Exactly.
And we don't have to overcomplicate anything. Just know that. And if you know that, you can control it because it's your ground And it's what you bringing up and you pushing back, and you are the master of that.
Exactly.
And if you allow other people to influence you, well, that's your problem, but you can deal with it on your own. You can handle it. That's how I see it.
I love what you see, because it's so true. And Betty is fully agreeing with you, okay? Because it's so true what you're saying. But the thing is, I just want you to give us a tip. How do we get there to know this? Because you know what? You can't sit there and say, yeah, I understand it. It's amazing, blah, blah, blah. You've got to actually get there. You've got to know it. How do you get to know it? And you know, it's an interesting question, because the more vulnerable you are, the more chance you have to know it. Now, I don't know if you remember when I started off with this teaching, that Anam Topton said, it feels we are living in an intense time when there is so much confusion as well as so much potential. So the confusion can turn over into potential. It's up to you. And he says there's a hunger for inner freedom that comes when one sees that the wheel of delusion, confusion, and neurosis is exhausting. And here we are in that 13th level of right in the middle of the 25 things. That's our world that Buddha Shakyamuni did. And it's pure. And in this world right now are all the teachings we need. And if you even don't want to do the pujas and you don't want to do the practices, just go and read them. Read what it was said in Guru Rinpoche this morning, because it's all there. Everything that we need is there. And when you're vulnerable and when you're going through a really hard time, that's the best time to allow yourself, because then the hectic intellectual mind just doesn't have a hope in hell. You know, it just can't. You haven't got the energy, you haven't got the strength. So then your spontaneous semni, your spontaneous mind comes alive and you just realize things. You know, it's so interesting when you listen to these teachers. You should all go and read some of these, listen to some of these YouTubes, Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, because he was an amazing master of last century and the century before. And now he's this modern guy, you know, and I love to listen. Now, what I find so interesting is that when he's teaching Easterners, like he was teaching in what's that place called? Singapore. He was teaching in Singapore to mostly Asian people. There were obviously other people, but he was teaching Asian and it was being translated. And the way he teaches those Asians is completely different to when I was listening to the Reign of Wisdom he was teaching to Canadians. Okay, it's so interesting because the Canadians, he challenges them and they challenge him. And, you know, they have this unbelievable dialogue together and they say, but Rinpoche, why is this like this? And why is it? Where the Chinese, you know, where the Singaporeans bow and say, thank you very much for your teaching. And, you know, it's such an interesting thing because it's the drama. And when he was saying to drop the baggage, he was saying, drop the baggage of who you are. Maybe you're in this lifetime and you're a beggar. Maybe you're a king. He goes, maybe you're a Canadian. And they all kill themselves laughing. There are about 300 people in the audience. Maybe you're a Singaporean. Maybe you're a dog. Maybe you're a this. Maybe you're a that. He says, but each one is just the way you're going to learn the little drama of how it works with the ground, the essence, the nature, and the manifestation. Once you get this, and then going back into the ground, once you get this, then nothing can trip you up. Bets, do you want to say anything?
Well, I had an incident the other day with my husband, and I knew that what he wanted me to do, it was not the right thing. It was kind of suffering. And I said no, and I didn't do it. And I let it be, and everything clear up. And I realized it's the other people sometimes, like I know what I should do. But sometimes other people trying to, kind of make you do things that you don't want to do. But if you're so positive and you know what you have to do, you have to, just don't analyze, go with the flow and just do nothing.
You see, the whole thing is, and that was the story of the king who, the whole land drank this water that was polluted, and they all became crazy except the king. So the king had to become crazy, had to drink the water, because now they saw him as different. I can honestly often see when we're standing somewhere and talking to someone, and I give one of what I consider my truths, my truths to this person who's saying something which I don't agree with at all, and my husband will shut me up in a sort of a way, just like you say. You'll kind of say, okay, kind of thing, like, don't give this whole spiel to somebody, and I'm very happy to give that spiel, because I want to live the life that I now know. I want to live the life of the Buddha nature. I want to go into the mandala of Guru Rinpoche. I want to do those things. There's nothing else. When you can lie in front of your shrine and actually say, I am offering absolutely and totally every single thing that I've got. You can have it all. I just want that connection, and I want that help. And when you've got that, it's amazing. And even if you're dying, you won't be afraid. You really won't be afraid, because you'll just surrender. And if you've been doing it every single day, like really, if you do these prayers of Jigme Lingpa and you take it and you read up to where we've gone, we've done just a few of the verses, you suddenly realize there's no eternal life. There's no eternal pure Buddha land where you go and you sit in this divine place. For what? What if we got to sit in a divine place? It's all internal. Everything we've got is internal. So we need to turn the eye inwards and find it and be there, and that's it. And often I say to my husband, when I wake up in the morning, I kind of know where I'm going. I kind of know where I have to go. I know what I have to do. It's all I have to do, whatever happens. And when I was sick this week, it really made me realize that whatever happens, once your mind is attuned, you've got everything you ever need. It doesn't really matter what the outcome is. Just understand that, and let's dedicate everybody. I better rest this voice, otherwise I won't be able to do one tomorrow. Let's dedicate to all sentient beings, and Bern, also to you, getting better. I don't like this thing of you not being well, and I like to see your face. But for all sentient beings who are going through suffering, so many in the world, so many in our land, South Africa, so many everywhere, we dedicate these teachings. May they understand this is a temporary drama that they're going through. May they understand it will all dissolve back into the essence. May all of you really be able to take this and ponder it wherever you're going this afternoon. Keep it in your mind. turning yourself inwards to find that truth. Through this merit, may we all achieve all-seeing Buddhahood, and thereafter, once all harmful enemies have been defeated, may all beings be liberated from the ocean of existence stirred by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Sonam die tamche zipane topne nepe tranam pamshene jega nachi bala trupaye sife sole doa do warsho. Recording.